welcome to A Day in Her Life, a weekly podcast where we get to chat with fantastic women about what their days look like and the everyday ways they are making it all work. I'm your host, Ellie Rinnick, and I am so glad that you're here. This week, I am so excited for this conversation with Catherine Brown, a tech marketer, mom of 2 kiddos, and founder of the Cabro, an Instagram and website that speak to the challenges and joys of modern working motherhood. I discovered the Cabro via Julia at Smarter in a Sec, another future guest, and Catherine's content has been so refreshing. I was so excited when she agreed to chat with us today. In our conversation, Catherine shares the way that Fair Play by Eve Rodsky has influenced how she and her husband structure their tasks and responsibilities, and how they divide and conquer morning and evenings to make sure that everyone gets the time they need. Catherine shares how she started the Cabro out of a need for more voices of moms working outside of the home, and the struggles that come with that, but also the really joyful and beautiful things about motherhood. Catherine also shares the great apps that she used to stay in touch with friends, her methods for estate sale and Facebook Marketplace finds, and how her career pivoted from being trained as a therapist to tech marketing. This conversation is so much fun, and if you're struggling or thinking about ways to shift your daily division of labor with your partner, this is a great listen for you. You can learn more about Catherine by following along on _the Cabro on Instagram and thecabro.com. You won't regret it. And as always, thank you for making A Day in Her Life a part of A Day in Your Life. I am so excited that you're here. I am thrilled to be sharing conversations with other women about their daily lives, and I love hearing from you about what's resonating and how you're taking little tidbits from these conversations into your daily life. If you're loving the podcast, please share it with a friend, drop us a review on podcasts or Spotify, and tag us on Instagram at A Day in Her Life Pod. If you have any feedback or guest suggestions, you can send me a message on Instagram or on our website, adayinherlife.com. Also, you can subscribe to our newsletter from our website or on Substack. This week's newsletter, I shared the favorite things that my friends brought to our favorite things dinner. They're all under $50 and such great finds. On A Day in Her Life, we love to feature an organization doing good that is close to our guests' hearts. Catherine suggested Chamber of Mothers, and it is such a fantastic organization. You may or may not know that the U.S. is 1 out of 2 countries without national paid leave. You may also know that the U.S. maternal mortality rate is one of the worst in the world, especially for women of color. The Chamber of Mothers champions the work of existing advocacy groups, educates mothers about the personal impact of politics, and encourages women to use their voices, dollars, and power to hold lawmakers accountable for the nexus of failed or non-existent support systems for mothers. You can learn more about how to get involved by going to chamberofmothers.com. All right, let's jump into the episode and have some fun. All right, welcome to A Day in Her Life. Today, Catherine Brown is joining me to discuss her days. Hi, Catherine. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
We're thrilled to have you. Can you set the scene for us and tell us who you are, where you live, what your family looks like, and what you do?
Sure. So I am Catherine Brown. I live in Seattle and I work in tech marketing. My husband and I have 2 children. We have a 3-year-old boy and a 1-year-old girl, and we love living in the Pacific Northwest.
Awesome. And let's talk about a day in your life. So if you wouldn't mind, start with your mornings. What time do you wake up? And then how does your day progress from there?
Sure. So most mornings I wake up around 5:30. I have an alarm that goes off at 5:30. That does not mean that I get out of bed at that time. I have found over time with children that I would much rather have a slow start to get out of the bed than a quick start. I also really like just sitting in bed, which is kind of the antithesis to who I seem like externally to most people. I seem like the type that would just jump out of bed and go and work out. And I did that when I was single or without kids. But I also have found over time that I really just enjoy sitting in my bed. So my alarm goes off so that I have that time to do it. And it's not a hard start with one of my kids crying or wanting me to go wake them up. So 5:30, I wake up, and then usually it's my youngest, my daughter, who wakes up. One thing that's interesting about my husband and I feel like not interesting, but something that my husband and I do is that we switch off mornings in terms of who gets up first with the kids. So this is my morning. I'm describing my morning where I get up with the children. So I go get her ready for the morning, give her her bottle, do the change. Then we wake up my son. Then I get my son ready for school. My husband now gets up and he takes my son to preschool, and I stay with our daughter until the nanny arrives or until we take our nanny to the nanny share. So my daughter is with another little girl in a nanny share. We have our nanny that we've had for a long time, know her really well, and we switch off houses. Some people don't know what a nanny share is. You switch off houses. The nanny stays with both kids for the full 8 hours, and you trade off houses. And so depending on if they come to our house, then I just hand off the child, our daughter, and go get ready for the morning, or I walk her down and then come back home and get ready. So my husband, if it's his morning, what he will do is he gets up, does the same thing, except it's my turn to take our son to preschool. And I drop him off. And a lot of times those are the days that I'm going into the office. So then I will have already gotten ready in the morning, and he has the kids. He's the one that's responsible for getting everything ready. So we don't have this like both of us are in charge at the same time, kind of juggling back and forth. It's we both know in our heads who's on point for the kids. And it changes if we have an early morning or a doctor's appointment or things like that. But we just have a setup where who's on point for what, and we trade off so that no parent is doing the whole morning by themselves unless they have to.
Or the kids are off to school or with the nanny. How does your day start, and how do you structure your day, or do you have much control over the structure of your days?
Sure. So both my husband and I have an option to work from home most of the time right now. And so I go into the office at a minimum once a week, sometimes twice a week. That's the agreement that we have at work right now. I don't know if that'll change in the future. And so what I usually do is it's a lot like the years in 2020 is that I make sure that I look good from the waist up. And a lot of my calls are done at home. And so I start my day. I try to keep my mornings, especially on Monday mornings, I try to keep them pretty free so that I can get ramped back up and get my head back into what I need to do. And one thing that I do on Fridays is I have this session where I kind of plan out the next 2 weeks for work and personal life. It's something that I picked up from this time management course that I took with Kelly Nolan. I don't know if you've heard of her, but I talk about her a lot on the Cabro. But it really sets me up for knowing what I have to do that week and making sure that I've blocked enough time to get those things done. My schedule also has a lot of focus time in it. So I have 2 hours of focus time, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and 1 hour of email time, and then a lunch break and a break throughout the day. And then they're recurring meetings throughout the week, and I move those around throughout the day based on when people are needing me or meetings. But it also gives me time to make sure that I'm doing, if I need to get an email out, I put it in that, prioritize email time slot. And I know that I've got set time to do that. If I've got focus time, I know that I'm going to get those projects done during that time. So I've been doing that actually for a long time in my career prior to Kelly, but Kelly's really good at helping you keep that hygiene going.
I really like that idea, and having that structured focus time must be, it's good to protect that. I feel like
Yeah.
you get where you're like 30-minute meetings every 30 minutes, and then you have no time to actually do anything.
Yeah. It's really good at blocking your time so that other people are forced to fill in at the other times so that you know that you've got a consistent heads down time. And I really love that.
After work, what does your evening look like, or how does that precipitate? Do you trade off days or ownership there too?
We trade off who picks up which kid. There's one day where I have a late meeting and my husband picks up both children. But for the most part, we trade off who picks up which kid. So like if I'm already out at work and I'm driving home from work, I will pick up our son at preschool. And then my husband is either already at home and our daughter is here with the nanny share, or she's down the street and he goes and picks her up.
And what does that post pickup dinner evening time look like in your household right now?
Sure. So my husband and I, prior to having our kids, would do the box meals. And that worked really well for us. But then once we started with one kid and we're trying to feed him, and he became more, actively eating the food that we were eating, we paused those meal kits and started cooking. And what we did was we each took a day. So it was like I did Mondays, he did Tuesdays, I did Wednesdays, Thursdays, take out on Friday, out usually on Saturday, Sunday. Once we had 2 kids, that whole process was blown out of the water. And so what we did was we decided it was much easier for one person to manage a week of meals, because if a meal got moved or if we had leftovers, then that person could kind of juggle how to use all of the groceries. Otherwise, it was like he was cooking on Mondays, something came up on Tuesdays, my groceries went bad. So usually my husband does dinner, or I will do dinner while the other parent hangs out with the children. We also we trade off nights off. So on one night of the week, one parent kind of checks out around 6 or 7 o'clock, supports getting one of the kids bathed, and the other parent spends that quality time with the children, and that other parent gets some time off. It also allows for that parent who has time off to have a consistent night to go see friends, or if someone's wanting to get together, we don't have to juggle our calendars around. I tend to be a little bit more social, so it's easier for me to not feel like I'm taking advantage of being out too many times. And so my husband loves to go downstairs and just relax in his office on his couch and watch Netflix. And so that's what he does with his time. I work on the Cabro. When it comes time to putting the kids down, our 1-year-old is a little bit easier right now. Both of our children are sleep trained. That was really important for us we both have sleep issues. So it's important for us to make sure that our kids go down so that we both can get our sleep at night. So my daughter is pretty easy right now. My son is 3 and loves to negotiate. I mean, he's got to go potty. He needs to go get water or milk. He's got, the other night he called my husband in and said, "Dad, why is the sun and the moon not in the sky at the same time?" And my husband just laughed and was like, "Catherine, I sat and talked to him for 5 minutes. It was my night out. I was with my mom's group, having some chats and some drinks together in the neighborhood." And he told me the next day, he was like, I couldn't stop. And I was like, I wouldn't either, So that's what our evenings look like, is we do a lot of trading off. Getting 2 kids at that young age bathed and out of a tub is really hard safely. So sometimes the other parent will pop back up and kind of help out. But then they also know they can tap out and go back downstairs. And it helps with resentment, not feeling like, one parent isn't helping, or, I don't get my time off. That has been really helpful, I think, for us as individuals in our marriage.
Resentment is a really good point, because it's easy to, in any parenting relationship, I feel like resentment is easy to
take hold
at any
yeah.
moment. And that the way you structured that is really cool.
So I've talked about this a lot on the Cabro. My husband and I both follow the fair play method with Eve Brodsky. Are you familiar with her method? Okay.
Yes.
And we found that to be, I talk about it so much that I feel like I'm just, a broken record on how wonderful that book is. But I was headed back to work after my firstborn was born. And I read the book and sat my husband down, and everyone says, "Did he read the book?" And I told him, I was like, "It's really great if you read the book, but if you don't want to read the book, then there's no questioning the method that I bring up, because she's already walked through all of the reasons why you do it this way. So if you choose not to read the book, then there can't be any questions about the way that we're going to do this." And he said, "Okay, I respect that." So we follow her method almost to the T. The only thing that we don't do is we don't trade tasks very often, because it's just, I'm not in that phase of life where I want to mess up my routine. But that helps with that resentment that I knew was going to start building up. It was little things like the dishwasher. He did it 3 times and I had done it 2 times, but I had done the laundry and he didn't do the laundry. And so we became very clear about, my husband does dishes, I do laundry. And then we don't get upset when one of us hasn't done one of those tasks, because it's not the card we carry, as she says. So I wanted to throw that in there, that fair play has been a huge part of how we've created our routines.
I love fair play, and I did the same thing. I read the book, and it was probably around the same time based on your son's age, and also was trying to get my husband to read the book. And I think I need to have that conversation again. And we've come back around to it a few times. I think there's definitely ways. I think the method is so valuable. And there's also a documentary. Have you heard that there's a new documentary on?
I have. I have. I
And
have not watched it yet, but I
I
have.
haven't watched it either. And I had suggested it to my husband. And then a few weeks later, he was like, oh, I really want to watch Fair Play. It's on Netflix. I was like, oh, wow. I'm so impressed. I'm so proud of him. There's a new thriller on Netflix called
Yes. Yes.
and I was laughing so hard because I was like, of course there would be something of the same name at the same time.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
On days where you're not out and you and your husband are both home, how do you spend that time once the kids are down, and what does your evening look like together, if at all?
I'm laughing because that is something that we need to work on. Sorry, I was pausing because I was like, how do I want to say this? Because we have a very strong marriage. My husband and I are working on spending more time together. We are so exhausted right now. We do a lot of parenting and a lot of the work ourselves. And so we usually spend that time resting. I work on the Cabro. Sometimes he might work. Sometimes I might work. Sometimes he's on Netflix. One thing that we will do every night after the kids get down, even if someone has that night, quote unquote, off. And a lot of times when I say off, I'm in my office or I'm, sitting on my phone working on something for the Cabro, or my husband is downstairs watching Netflix or watching a game, or we're just hanging around the house. We do a check-in, and our marriage therapist taught us this. And basically what it is it's just a minute or two. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 10 minutes where we check in. And it might be something like, here's something funny that happened today, or here is something that was really frustrating. I want to kind of talk through it really quick. And we've learned to get really great about talking about hard topics because we just don't have time to let it fester. And so we'll talk about something like that. We'll say, hey, anything come up where tomorrow morning you need some support? Or, hey, we got that email from our friends. What are we going to do about this? And so we'll do a quick check-in. And we tell each other we love each other. Like, that's kind of a thing. We kind of have like, love you, love you. And it's our way to connect and have that moment of, okay, we're not just going our separate ways. We're not just doing, life sort of side by side separately. We're doing it together, and we're coming back together to have that moment. My husband tends to be more of a night owl than I am. And so I do go to bed sometimes a little bit sooner than he does. And so it's our way of, at least with everything that's going on, having that connection moment. Even if we have spent the whole day, his office is on the other side of the house, the whole day, together, it's our moment to say, hi, how I see you. This was crazy. Our son is finally in bed. Go watch Netflix. I'm going to go do the Cabro. I love you.
I love that. And what does your bedtime routine look like? Do you have a routine, or what time is your typical bedtime?
I do try to have a bedtime routine. So my bedtime is usually sometime between 10 and 11. I struggle with sleep, and I have a sleep expert. I'm not trying to be a doctor or tell anyone what they need to do with their own sleep schedules, but the optimal time to go to bed is within plus or minus 1 hour within every night. So I try to go to bed between 10 and 11. With me working in tech and also running an online platform with the Cabro, a website, and an Instagram account, it is really hard for me to get off tech 2 hours before bedtime. And so I try to get offline around 9:30. I do have that put in my calendar, like as a block, get off of technology, close down technology for the night. So I do try to do that. Eventually, I would love to start reading before I go to bed. I do have a large stack of to be read books on my bedside table. And so I know that'll come back in another season, but I do try to do my skincare routine every night. That is something that my future self thanks my previous self for. So I try to do that every night. And then I fall asleep pretty fast. It's just waking up in the middle of the night that's my trouble.
My future self is probably one of my favorite phrases.
Yes.
I have to tell
yes.
you.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm working out, I'm like, my future self will be grateful. My future self will be grateful.
Right. Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about the Cabro and kind of how you started the Cabro, and for those that aren't familiar?
Sure. So the Cabro is a website and Instagram account. I'm far more active on Instagram right now than my website, but trying to work on that for 2024. It is a website that's dedicated to women, professional women who work outside of the home. So it started around the time that my son was born during July, August 2020 was when the concept was birthed. I was a blogger back in the early days, for those of you that know, like Design Sponge and Damsel in Dior, kind of that era. And I tried to kind of do a lifestyle blog, and it was really fun. And I had some followers. I met a couple of people, internet friends, that one of them I still talk to this day. But then I kind of shut it down because I didn't have the knowledge for search engine optimization or the time or really the financial ability to back up something like that. So then when 2020 came, let me pause. Before that, before 2020, a lot of my friends kept telling me, why aren't you writing? You need to get back online. Like, I loved, it was called My Sundry Musings. I still own the website, but it's defunct now. There's nothing there if you go look at it. But my friends said, why aren't you back online? And I kept thinking, I don't feel like I have anything to contribute. I need a niche. And I don't have something that I feel like I have a lot to talk about. And then when I was starting to become a mom, I said, okay, well, where are all the moms, the working moms that are out there? Certainly there's somebody out there that's talking about being a working mom or a mother who's working outside of the home. And I just couldn't find anyone that was doing it consistently. And I know why now. It's really hard. We don't have a lot of time to do these things. These side ventures are really hard. Or they were women who wanted to become full-time content creators. And so they talked about their professions, but they weren't necessarily bringing their followers into that. And that is totally fine. I think that being a full-time influencer now that I'm on this side of it, it is a very hard job to build that following, to keep your engagement, and to monetize this space. And I give a lot of credit to the women that came before me. And so I decided right then, okay, that's it. That's my niche. I want to talk about being a working mom. And I had to sit with it a little bit and say, okay, how much am I okay with talking about my personal life? I don't want my children's names or faces. I don't want to over glorify my marriage. I don't want to talk too personally about things, but I do want to talk about what's hard. I want to talk about what's lovely and beautiful about motherhood. I want to share recommendations. I don't want to act like I'm an expert in anything that people should be going to their doctors for or to the experts on. But I do want to share how I'm choosing to do some of these things. I had a friend in business school who had an ad agency, a digital agency, and I reached out to her to ask her if she knew of anyone in her company who could support me in this. And she offered to do it pro bono as part of her digital agency. And I was really looking for someone that, I said, do you have like a junior artist that would like to do this as a side project? I was not expecting her to say that at all. And I really credit her doing that for me. She did my brand. She did my logo. She did everything. Her company did that for me as pro bono to support the work that I was going to be doing, and that was to be supporting working moms. And I'm forever grateful for that, because I think it helped me get the credibility. Having that brand solidified really helped me as a marketer, legitimize the work that I was doing. And then it was a really slow roll after that, in terms of I built a little bit of content and then I launched it. And 95% of the people that followed me were my friends. And like the other 5% were people that, were friends of friends that saw them repost my inaugural post. And from there, I've just built out this community that's both associated with me, but also associated with the people who are, it's really a lot of the work that I do is amplifying the opinions and thoughts and experiences of my followers, what they want to share anonymously.
Yeah, that's something I've really enjoyed about your content is I actually wrote down, I loved how you asked people what brings them joy. You shared a recent thing about what brings you joy as a parent, because I think we talk a lot about what's hard, because it is freaking hard.
Yeah.
But I'm also trying, when I talk about things that are hard, I'm also trying to remind myself and talk about the good things too, because it is, you only do the hard things because you get something good out of them, or you stop doing them.
Right.
And kids are inherently joyful and bring so much of it to parenting a lot of times.
Right.
And I love your crowdsourced opinions too.
Thank you.
Something I've also really enjoyed.
That's a little selfish of me, I'm going to be honest, because a lot of those are things that I am struggling with, and I love being able to ask my followers and then share it back. But I get so much out of those as well. I try to give credit that on the very first slide that it's my followers who give me all of that. Sometimes I get credit for it, and I'm always like, no, these are my followers. These aren't everything that I do. This is, other people told me to do this. So I get a lot out of it too, and it sounds cheesy and cliche, but I really do.
That's awesome. I was also an OG blogger back in the early 2010s, and
I love it. Of course you were. Of course. Yeah.
The Not Quite Adult, and then that disappeared.
Oh, that's the Not Quite Adult. Oh, that is a great one.
Thank you. I was so sad. I forgot to like pay my like hosting fee or whatever, and like all of the content was gone, and I was devastated.
Oh no.
Because I like kind of fell out of it around the time I was wedding planning, and then never got back into it. And then but then similarly, I was like, "Where's my outlet?" And now I talk to women about their days.
I love it. The Not Quite Adult.
What do you do during the day for yourself, Catherine?
I try to focus on what my goals are for this time of my life. I have some things that I enjoy doing. I've talked about this a lot right now, that for me, it is my family, focusing on my family, focusing on my career, and then focusing on the Cabro. The Cabro gives me a lot of joy. It gives me a lot of joy in the other things that I'm not able to do right now. For instance, I'm not really reading a lot of books, but I do a lot of reading online, articles. I'm understanding the sentiment of other mothers who work outside of the home and mothers who choose to work inside of the home. So I spend a lot of time on the Cabro. It gives me a lot of joy. I do that for me just as much as I do it as this sort of side, some people call it a side hustle, and in some ways it is, but it really is. It brings me so much joy to do the Cabro. And then I also really focus on prioritizing sleep and drinking water and my mental health. And so it is so hard, I think, as a mother, period, any mother, to prioritize those things, regardless if you're working in or outside of the home. And as I have started to prioritize those things, it has been my greatest hack, is just going to bed and saying, I'm done. I'm done for the day, and I'm going to go to bed, and I'm going to protect this time. Just remembering to keep my Stanley beside me and drink my water. I try to do that. And I'm a big advocate for therapy. So both my husband and I go to marriage therapy off and on for years. And I go to individual therapy, and it is a place where, you asked me a minute ago, how do my husband and I connect? And I meant to say this then, that one of the things that we love about therapy is that it is 1 hour that is protected, that the two of us are sitting beside each other, and we are talking about something that we just cannot talk about during the week. That, it's probably a very expensive hour, but it is a very beautiful hour for us. So besides that, I do love to eat. I love good wine. I love traveling when I can and exploring new areas. And I really enjoy watching my kids experience things for the first time. I know we're supposed to have things outside of our kids, but I really enjoy watching my kids, as we say in tech, come online and start to see the world around them.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy to watch, and it's also like the most fun. My son was playing with a bunch of we have like these Schlake, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right. Those like animals that are very lifelike, and they're small. And we have a ton of them in a basket. And yesterday I was on a business call trying to entertain him, and he built this like entire world for them and was like telling me a story about it afterwards. And I was like, wow, the amount of things going on in your mind right now is so cool.
Right. I love that. I also forgot to mention, I love estate sales. I love decorating our home right now. That is really for me, and totally for me right now, is decorating our home as much as I can. So that is probably my one big hobby that's 100% for me outside of everything else that I do.
How do you find estate sales?
I go on estatesales.net and I look up what is in the area, and I have kind of a radius for how far I am okay with driving. And I know which companies I like the most. I've been to enough. There's like one company that I feel like, it it's not easy to find the prices and to kind of get to those places, and it's a little bit harder. So I don't go to that one. I have like 2 or 3 that I love. There's one in Seattle that works with really high-end homes. And so I can't always get everything that's there, but I usually prioritize their sales. So that's how I find them. And I usually stick to estatesales.net. I like going with professional companies because they typically they're well priced. They know how to lay everything out. There's not a lot of, you don't have to negotiate. It's a very straightforward thing. So I can go in as a mom who is really busy and doesn't have a lot of time. I can go in and I know what to expect at those sales. And I know that it's not overpriced so that I have to, like negotiate
Haggle.
on site. Yeah. And haggle on site. So, and if there's one that's, some of them are on like Friday or Saturday or Sunday. Doesn't always work out on a Friday, but I trade off with my husband on the weekend, and because we take mornings off even on the weekend so that the other one can sleep in. And I'll just go really quick. Sometimes I take my 3-year-old, but that's getting to be a lot harder with how much he likes to touch things and jump around. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So you mentioned your nights off and going out to connect with friends. How do you make time for your relationships with friends, or what are the ways that you prioritize that in a given week?
So it's something that I'm working on right now. I was really open about this on the Cabro about my children needing to have ear tubes and them being sick. I don't normally talk about their personal life or anything medical related about them, but it felt pretty innocuous and ended up being something that a lot of people related to. So I talked about it. But with my kids being sick and we also got COVID during all of that, there was a lot that was going on. And over the last 6 months, friends have really fallen off my calendar in terms of trying to get together with them. I know how important relationships are. And so I started to just try and just set the date, and hopefully one of us is not sick or one of the kids isn't sick. But the thing that's worked for me is just getting it on the calendar and trying to keep it and protect that time. So I have a mom's group that in my neighborhood, and we meet once a month, and it's always at, a different restaurant or a nearby bar. It's after bedtime so that most of us can pass off the rest of the night to our partners and then head out. I can't always make it. I haven't been able to make it to that one. I did this week for this month for the first time in a really long time. But what I love about it is that that night is protected. Unless something comes up that I really can't, I have to cancel, which I have with sick kids and a couple of other things with travel. It's nice to have that regular rhythm where okay, we do meet at this time, and this is the time that we're going to make it happen. The other thing I do is that I do Marco Polo. Do you know Marco Polo, the app?
No.
Okay. So Marco Polo, I think it's one of my best hacks, and I should talk about it on the Cabro more. So it is an app where it's almost like you're sending a recording of you talking to your friend. So it's kind of like Marco Polo. And so I send a video to a friend and I say like, hey, here's what's going on in our life. And it's a monologue. And you just talk to them like on a video. It's almost like FaceTime. And then they watch it when they have time and they send you one back. And so I have been able to stay in touch with a dear friend of mine who moved to Colorado, who I love. And we were losing touch with each other because it's so hard to get on a call and to call your friend at the same time in different time zones with young kids in school and all of those things. I have a dear friend in Atlanta. I talk about her a lot, Alice Park. She has Alice Park Photography. She's a great Atlanta mom to follow, has her own business and shares a lot of her life like I do. And she and I talk Cabro and Alice Park Photography all the time. And she knows everything that's going on in my life. And then I have another friend that lives nearby that I can never seem to find time to go see. She is a ferry ride away. So there's water involved in crossing a body of water. And I'm able to stay in touch with her and find out what's going on in her life. And so Marco Polo is a fantastic hack. The other hack is that you can get a family plan. And I think it's 4 to 6 people. And you can send it to whoever. So you can split the cost of it. I think it's like a little bit over $100 and split it 4 to 6 ways and with whoever you want. And you don't even have to talk to each other. It could be like 4 random friends and you can, stay in touch with people and get the premium version of Marco Polo, which has some editing and opportunities. And you can listen double time. That's what I pay for is the double time. So that's how I prioritize friends right now.
And similarly with your partner, you mentioned couples therapy and you're having your check-in at night. Are there other ways that you try to make time for each other right now, or is that
Yeah. What are
go
some
ahead,
other
go
ways?
for it.
Yeah. So we're in the new year, we are going to try and start doing what every couple I feel like tries to do, and that's prioritize at least one date night a week, even if it's just at home, like a home date night. We are honestly so exhausted right now. We have been trying to finish Stranger Things. Like, when did Stranger Things finish? Was it a year ago? Was it this summer? We need to finish Stranger Things. So that's one thing that we're trying to do. But another thing that we do is we have found a neighborhood teenager who can come over and babysit while we are at home. And we spend time doing, I know this sounds kind of sad, but we do like house projects together, things that we need to get done. So we finish some stuff in the garden. The next time she comes over, we're going to, clean out our garage together and just spend this time together doing some projects that we used to do when we didn't have kids and we really enjoyed doing together. So do that. And then eventually just kind of sometimes we go to lunch when we're both working at home, and we live near several restaurants. And so we'll just do a day date. We need to eat lunch. It's a Friday, it's slower, or maybe a Thursday, and we'll just go quickly grab lunch, just like we would do in the office with a colleague. And we grab lunch really quick, and then we come back home and go back to work. So those are some ways that we've been creative about spending time together right now.
I love that. My husband and I did a babysitter so that we could blow all of the leaves in our yard. And it was not enjoyable, but it saved us money. And it was kind of a funny story in the end. We had a good time.
And very satisfying at the end to have all the leaves out of your yard, I'm sure.
Yeah. And not paying like $1,600 for someone to do it. The quote we got was outrageous.
That is outrageous. Like, no, thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, any opportunity to wear Carhartt overalls and a leaf blower backpack. Why not?
Oh, the backpack. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was sexy. What are some of your hobbies and how do you make time for them?
One of the things that I love to do, and I shared this a little bit, is I love to go to estate sales and I love to shop on Facebook Marketplace. So another person I follow on Instagram is A Glass of Bovino, and I subscribe to her subscription service on Instagram, and she helps me train my Facebook algorithms to surface antiques in the Seattle area. It's $2.99 a month. It is so cheap and it saves me so much money. I promise I'm not here to just talk about other people's accounts, but I do love amplifying other people because I feel like if you follow me, you might be interested in some of the same things as me. So I'm sharing these things. So I love to just find amazing finds for my house. My mom went to estate sales. I started going to them when I was 16, and I still remember this day where she was sitting at one and watched this very gorgeous, like, Asian rug went for hundreds of dollars and was worth thousands of dollars. And she said, I'm going to bid on the next thing. And she brought home this amazing furniture that didn't even need refinishing for our dining room. And so I learned how to do that early on and to spot things. And so I enjoy that. I do enjoy reading. I don't get to do reading. I don't get to read as much as I would like right now. But when I do, I usually devour a book pretty fast. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I listen to books, but it's really hard for me to do that. Sometimes I just want silence in the car because I've been on calls all day long, and just, I'll listen to books. And then I really love traveling and eating really good food, and it's hard to do. We just went on our first trip with our kids on a plane, and it was not terrible. It was just exhausting. So it'll be a while before we jump on another plane, but we loved to travel, and I used to travel a lot for work. So I do enjoy traveling.
I used to travel a lot for work too, and I miss the perks that come with a lot of frequent work travel.
Yes. I was a normal traveler with no status, and it was the most humbling experience.
It's so humbling.
So humbling. And I think we all need it, right? We get a little cocky as frequent flyers, and then it's good to get reminded of, it's good to get reminded of
how the normal people travel.
It's good to be reminded to be humble.
My husband now is the one who travels more often, which is a drastic shift for us. Mm-hmm. And he had to gift me status for the first time ever. And I was like, I am begging you, just give me status.
Oh, gifting status. I forgot about that.
I know. Yeah. Right. Like, ugh, it's a lot different when you can't use those perks when you have kids. It's like we really need them when we have kids.
For sure. For sure.
Speaking about, you used to travel a lot for your job. Interested in how you kind of got into the career that you have now, and
Sure.
if you could take us through that path.
Sure. It's a little bit of a long story, but I will get us all there. So I originally thought that I was going to go into some sort of like nonprofit. I was going to be in nonprofit, or I was going to be a therapist. And I really wanted to be a therapist for a long time. And I graduated from undergrad. I went and did some humanitarian work. I came back. I worked in kind of marketing, nonprofit marketing, and then I worked for a for-profit private company doing essentially medical sales. And I really enjoyed working in business, is just what I say. I enjoyed being in the business world, but I couldn't shake this feeling of wanting to be a therapist. So I finally came out to Seattle and went to a really small school called the Seattle School and got my master's in counseling psychology. My third year that I was in the program, we were doing our internships, and I was also in a class for career counseling, basically learning how to do career counseling with people. And it was an intro level class. And so we took like this Myers-Briggs. We kind of took all these different personality tests that help you understand what the best role is for you. And I always like to pause and say that those tests get a bad reputation sometimes because people think that it puts someone in a box. I think it actually just helps kind of surface. I don't follow them 100%, but I do think it surfaces why you might feel or be drawn to certain things and give you some ideas and clarity and structure. And so what was happening for me as a therapist is that I worked in a very sort of, it's called cognitive behavior therapy. My school was more relational, existential, mindfulness, that type of program. And my internship was the exact opposite. It was cognitive behavior therapy. So the program was a lot about, there's a reason probably why you're drinking, but we're not going to explore that. We're going to talk about how you stop drinking right now. And if you want to go to explore that somewhere else, that's fine. But we're going to talk about the tips and tricks, the 12-step programs, all of those things. And it wasn't just focused on alcohol or anything. It was focused on like bipolar, borderline personality disorder, depression, schizophrenia, all of that. And so I found that I really liked the teaching portion, and I liked being more direct in my therapy. At the same time, I found that it was really hard work, and there is a part of therapy where you need to sit back as the therapist, and maybe you see some things, but it's so important for the other person to realize that for themselves, that you can actually harm the work by stepping in too soon. And that was really hard for me. And so as I took this Myers-Briggs, as I was taking these career strong inventory and all these other things, all of my classmates, where there was a grid, and it was like all of my classmates who kind of like showed up as becoming therapists were on the bottom left quadrant, and I was in the top right quadrant. And I was like, interesting that I'm feeling these feelings, interesting that it says I should be in marketing, I should be in sales, I should be in finance, I should, and it sort of helped me realize what I was feeling. And I was so grateful for the work that I did. I still to this day think about those patients, and I think about those clients and how it really informed the way that I look at people in general. So I don't think that time was wasted. But I got to the end of my program and I said, I don't know if I want to be a therapist. And so I talked to a mentor at school, and he said, Catherine, I see you as the director of a clinic. And I walked away from that conversation, and I realized, well, in order to be the director of a clinic, and he was kind of honoring that business side of my mindset. In order to be the director of a clinic, I was going to need to do about 10 years of therapy. And I thought, I don't think I want to do that. So I started applying back into sales and marketing roles. And throughout most of my career, I have been able to get the roles that I've received through my network. I think all but one of them was through my network, someone recommending me. And I put on Facebook back in the day, like 2010, it says Catherine ... And I was like, Catherine ... is really wanting to find a job, and someone saw that worked in Seattle and said, well, what are you looking for? Like DM'd me. And I said, well, anything. He said, I've been a consultant for years, and I have a lot of relationships with different businesses in Seattle. What do you want? And I said, well, I'd love to do like some sort of operational project management, event management. And he literally said, send me your resume. I sent him my resume. And my future manager, he sent it to my future manager. She was literally looking at the recruiter, asking for the role that I eventually got. And it just it was this like crazy moment. And that changed my life. And there've been other moments in my life that, that was a tech business and technology consulting firm. From there, I got into consulting. From then I worked for a data visualization software company. And then I went into another tech company, and now I'm at Microsoft. And through that, I also got my MBA, my executive MBA, because I really felt that for me personally, I was hitting my ceiling quickly because I didn't have that business acumen. I knew a lot about the emotional intelligence and working on teams and leading teams and managing other people and, the internal sides of working with people, but I really didn't understand very basic concepts for business, and I knew it was going to hold me back. So I did that, and here I am in marketing in a technology company.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
always love hearing how past experience build onto new experience, even if it's a different path than originally intended.
Yeah.
What is a ball that you are currently letting drop, or a conscious decision to deprioritize something in your life right now as it sits?
So one thing that I've started to learn about prioritization and keeping balls in the air and dropping balls is as I've become more senior in my career, I noticed that people senior to me are not able to do everything all the time. If we think about all of the busy executives that we work with, a lot of them aren't always able to answer every email. They're getting hundreds of emails a day, right? And they're having to prioritize and triage what is the most important thing that I need to get done that day. And so that is really, I've really made a shift over the last 4 years of that mindset in my own work is, okay, it is impossible for me to get every single chat, every single thing, every single email, every single request done for the day. What are the big rocks that I need to do right now that need to get done today, that need to keep things moving? And what are the things that are small rocks that I have to put on my back burner, because otherwise I'm going to be working until 3 a.m. I just did on the Cabro a crowdsource on this. And this was my contribution. My bullet point was talking about moving up in my career and realizing that I can't do it all. And so which ones are the ones that are the most important? And some days I go to bed and all of them were important, and I got to as many as I could. And I wake up the next morning and I start over again. Okay, what is the most important thing that I need to get done today? Is it the one that I couldn't do yesterday, or can that one still wait one more day? Mm-hmm. And so that's how I've started to manage my career. And I feel like for myself, it's really helped me pivot to more strategic thinking and have the ability to be involved in more important conversations rather than just doing work for work's sake.
Mm-hmm. I love that. In terms, is that prioritization, does that carry through to your home life as well? Or how have you found that?
I am working on that in my home life because there are a lot of things that are very important to me that I have got to start letting go of. Mm-hmm. One thing that I've done is stop trying to be perfect at everything that I'm doing. For instance, this week has been exhausting for me. We just got back from traveling. I had a whole fiasco where I forgot my ID at the TSA, and it was just a disaster. And I've been spent this week, and it's the week before we celebrate Christmas. It's the week before Christmas, and there's a lot going on. So I have dropped the ball on starting new traditions or creating extra holiday magic for my children. I didn't do cookies for the neighbors this year. I'm so sorry if you're listening. I decided that there was a new tradition that I wanted to start that was really fun, that I've started saying no, so that it's not the quantity of things, but it's the quality of effort and input that I put into what I'm already doing right now, so that I can show up for my kids. So those are the balls that I've started to drop. Some of them are just dropping because they drop. I'm supposed to do laundry. That's my card. I'm not doing a great job of that right now. I do keep my house pretty clean, but my office is an absolute disaster right now, but I can shut the door and leave it. So those are kind of the balls that I feel like I'm dropping intentionally and unintentionally.
And then this is something that I've been asking kind of randomly, but like, is there something in a product you're using, or an item, or a Substack, or an Instagram subscription that you are following right now that is like really making you happy? What is bringing you joy something small can be very random too.
Yeah. So I am most excited about the ways in which generative AI is changing the world for the better and the way in which I can leverage it in my day to day to simplify tasks, to get information quickly, and to maximize my time to either scale or to spend time with my family. Like it's like a partner with me throughout my day. So I'm most excited about that.
That's awesome. That is a growth area for me because I need to learn how to use those tools more successfully. I'm dabbling, but definitely need to learn more. Awesome. Well, Catherine, where can people learn more about you and follow you?
Yeah, so I am most active on Instagram. So it is at _ the Cabro, Cabro. And then I'm also at thecabro.com on the internet.
Awesome. And Catherine, what is your favorite part of a day in your life?
The favorite part of my day is at the end of a really great work day where I've had impact and stimulated my mind and done a lot of really great things separate from being a mom. But then I turn around and open my arms up and I'm picking my son up from preschool, or I'm going upstairs to get my daughter because the nanny shares here, or I go get her down the street and I get to give them such a huge hug and get reunited with them. That's just such a great feeling for me, is having both of those worlds coexist at the same time.
I love that. Thank you so much for being a guest on A Day in Her Life today. It was so great to chat, Catherine.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.